And we're on the prowl. Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of On the Prowl, the Daily Princetonian's weekly sports telecast. My name is Vikram Rao, and I'm executive editor for sports here at the Prince. And I'm seated alongside Gabe Debenedetti, associate editor for sports. How you doing, Gabe?
Not too bad, Vikram. How about yourself?
Pretty good. Well, we've really transitioned here into the winter season for sports here at Princeton, and we're going to start things off today talking about the men's basketball team, which just scored a pretty big win over St. Joe's.
Yeah, I mean, they really had a huge lead in the first half, and it sort of squandered it there in the second, but they still pulled out a 74-65 victory here at home in Dillon Gymnasium. Now, they were up by 25 in the first half and seemed to start to coast a bit. They finished the first half up by 18, and St. Joe's is a pretty tough team, so that was a very impressive display.
Right, the Tigers, good, solid Atlantic 10 squad.
That's right. The Tigers sort of led up in the second half, as you can see by the final score, 74-65 again, just a 9-point victory. But overall, a pretty comprehensive performance from the Tigers, who are now on a 3-game win streak.
Right. It's good to see. One of the things I think that's been really interesting about the men's basketball team this year is coming into the year, you really only had two guys that I'd say were really proven scorers in Doug Davis and Dan Mavrides.
That's right.
And what we've seen is we've seen a third guy emerge, Ian Hummer, who, if I'm not mistaken right now, is actually leading the team in scoring. Scored 12 points today on 6 of 6 shooting, and he's been a very steady presence down in the post for the Tigers. He's a sophomore, came as a heralded recruit last year, had a dad and an uncle who played here. And it's great to see him develop.
And let's not forget about junior Patrick Saunders, who had 11 points in the first half alone.
Right.
It's a pretty impressive performance overall from the Tigers, who will play Monmouth on Wednesday.
Yeah, good to see Saunders come back. He had an injury he was recovering from early in the season, and he's been playing well.
Yeah.
The women's basketball team continued its what we've come to expect of them with an enormous 87-45 victory over in-state rival Rider.
Yeah, the women's basketball team, I don't really know how to say it except that they're pretty good. They're not really expected to lose for the rest of the season.
Absolutely not. They've kind of played their big test games, and now it's,
That's right. They have a few slightly difficult ones coming up before the Ivy season starts. However, Rider is really not supposed to be any competition for the Tigers, and they really steamrolled over the Bronx. Naveen Rashid with 22 points, taking out Rider completely. The Tigers are a very good team. We might see them in the top 25 at some point this season, as I've been saying. Not exactly what we expected from them.
Right, absolutely. No surprises here. And like you said, if they were to keep winning games into league season, it's very possible that they could end up getting ranked.
That's right.
The men's hockey team played 2 games this weekend, losing to Clarkson 5-3, and then knocking off St. Lawrence 5-1 the next day.
That's right. The men's hockey team, many people suspected that this would be a rebuilding year for the Tigers. However, they've managed to stay atop the ECAC, which is a fairly impressive feat for such a young team.
Absolutely.
This was a decent weekend. They really thought that they should have beaten Clarkson, which they lost to 5-3. But they turned it around and beat St. Lawrence 5-1 in a pretty comprehensive victory. They're still tied for first in ECAC hockey with Yale, who is in the top 5 nationally. The Bulldogs are a very tough team, but the Tigers, are really holding their own so far.
Absolutely, it's good to see this team really, put together some nice results, especially in the league.
Yeah, absolutely,
and especially with a freshman, Andrew Kaloff, who is the team leader in points. Been a really good. He's only scored 2 goals, but he has 10 assists on the season. He's been a great facilitator for the Princeton offense. Yeah,
and another freshman, Ferris, had his 2 first goals of his Princeton career this weekend. So it's good to see the young guys stepping up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The women's hockey team also played 2 games this weekend.
That's right. They lost 2-1 to rivals Yale before finally snapping a 7-game winless streak against Brown with a 4-0 victory.
That's if you're going to end a long winning streak, a long losing streak, nothing like a big win, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, this is really not their year, and they've pretty much, understood that. But this was a really good way to get back on track, and they'll be looking to have a pretty good season for the rest of the way.
Right.
Yeah.
The wrestling team had 2 home dual meets over the weekend and dropped both of them. They were put in a bit of a tough situation with no 165-pounder, so they had to bump a couple guys up a weight class, and things didn't go so well with that. But the highlight of the weekend was sophomore Garrett Fry, who's currently ranked number 13 in the nation at 125 pounds. Swept his 2 decisions, won both bouts pretty comprehensively, and he's looking very good. This is a guy who, I'm sure if you asked head coach Chris Ayers would say this is a guy that I want to see place at NCAAs.
Yeah, we should just keep in mind that despite tough weekends like this, we really are seeing the midst of an upward trend for the Princeton wrestling program.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
For the past few years they have not been the greatest, but this last year and now this one, just things are really moving forward for the Tigers.
Yeah, steady improvement. This little mishap at 165 is unfortunate, but in general, in the past, the team really had trouble filling weight classes, and that's become less of an issue now. There's competition at each and every class, which has really helped the team.
Yeah. And last, both squash teams went up to New England this weekend and took all 3 of their matches. Very impressive job by both teams, and they're both still undefeated on the year, both ranked very highly in the nation, both expecting to compete for national titles.
Absolutely, that's what we've come to expect of Princeton squash now, isn't it, Gabe?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this week's edition of On the Prowl. We feel a little bad, this wasn't quite planned, but we ended up kind of dressing for Christmas here with our shirts, and it's a week early, 2 weeks early.
Sorry.
So sorry about that. Hopefully we can figure something more Christmassy out for future December editions of On the Prowl. So anyway, thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next week.